All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Legal Wellness and Belonging webinar series, part 4. This is Opportunities in Times of Uncertainty and Change, featuring the fabulous guest, Olga Mack, who is the CEO of Parley Pro, and Sangeetha Raghunathan, who is the General Counsel of Earnin. And so I'll give a little more background about each of them and then we'll get started. Olga Mack is the CEO of Parley Pro, a next-generation contract management company that has pioneered online negotiation technology. Olga embraces legal innovation and had dedicated her career to improving and shaping the future of law. She is convinced that the legal profession will emerge even stronger, more resilient, and more inclusive than before by embracing technology. True now more than ever. She shares her views in her columns on Above the Law, Bloomberg Law, Newsweek, and High Performance Counsel. Olga is also an award-winning general counsel, operations professional, startup advisor, public speaker, adjunct professor, and entrepreneur. She co-founded Sun Law, an organization dedicated to preparing women in-house attorneys to become general counsel and legal leaders, and WISE, which I had the pleasure of speaking to yesterday with Eleanor Lacey. It's an excellent group helping female law firm partners become rainmakers. She authored Get on Board, Earning Your Ticket to a Corporate Board Seat, and Fundamentals of Smart Contract Security. And we have Sangeetha Raghunathan, who is the General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer at Earnin. She provides strategic legal counsel to leading public and venture-backed companies at the forefront of emerging industries, and she's helped shape compliance, business strategy, culture, processes, and product. Her experience covers the broad range of legal matters relevant to technology-driven companies at all stages of development, including governance, mergers and acquisitions, financing, blockchain strategy, broker-dealer and alternative trading system issues, complex commercial contracts, IP, privacy, e-commerce, and employment, and financial services regulations. Both of you have a lot of background in blockchain and cryptocurrency. I wonder if that's something that you see changing in terms of social distancing and finance in this time we're in now. I know that wasn't one of the questions we discussed, but I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. I was just reading the other day that, and I haven't thought about blockchain in some time actually, because my current company doesn't focus on that, but I actually saw quite an interesting article about how, with current disruptions in the supply chain, again, blockchain technology reemerged as really an opportunity for that type of problem to be solved. And I always thought that blockchain, especially in the supply chain, was a really, really interesting and I think valuable use case that didn't get sort of the media attention, right? Like it wasn't super sexy, but it actually is like really one of the more practical uses of blockchain. And so I do now again have been hearing about that particular use case as something as pretty useful, I think, right now when we're all social distancing. I know Olga has been very close to this as well, so I'm curious to hear her thoughts.
Yeah, I haven't been actually as close in the same way. I am in the process of publishing a book about blockchain business models. I follow it pretty well, but my current company is not in that business. I think of blockchain the same way I think about AI, the same thing I think about virtual reality. Those are technologies that will be part of our daily lives. They're still a little premature and early, but in 5-10 years, they will be under the hood of many services and products combined with other technologies like cloud and existing technologies. I do find that blockchain technology very fascinating, especially the smart contracts portion of it, because it gives an opportunity to really automate a lot of things for example, in supply chain logistics. Because it is so nascent, we definitely need to do a whole lot more research. It is true that the toilet paper, the infamous toilet paper, has really shown the flaws in supply chain and logistics we have. I definitely see how smart contracts could be instrumental in helping solving this. I haven't really seen as much attention to it, although I have seen a few people discuss the supply chain problems. A lot of the blockchain smart contracts solution seems to be very financial focused. And it will be interesting to see where it ends up. I think it's a little premature to really to see the effects of this technology, but it is very fascinating, and I definitely think it's going to be part of our future in our lifetime.
Tell us, each of you, what you're doing now and how your current roles are being affected. Olga?
So I'm the CEO of Parley Pro. We serve the in-house lawyers community, procurement departments, and governments. We very much part of this commerce and in the middle of seeing how disruptive COVID has been to our existing and our future clients. We also can see that some of our clients have been prepared more than others. And what I find amazing, how little things really make a big difference. And maybe I'll talk about three. One is whether or not your employees had a laptop. We definitely have seen that companies that did not have to back order laptops very quickly and figure out a way to distribute them to their employees were much more prepared. Another thing is internet connection. It turns out that even in Silicon Valley, not all employees have internet connection. Your ability to have internet connection is highly correlated with your ability to be effective remotely. And then the third thing, which I haven't really seen in many companies, but I have seen it in some sophisticated companies, is sort of disaster preparedness. And some of our clients have actually thought of this scenario or similar scenario and had tabletop exercises around it. And so those three things, the laptops, the internet connection, and preparedness really is a huge difference in how our clients and how prospective clients are able to seamlessly work from home or work from anywhere and have business continuity. We'd love to see, we'll hear Sangeetha's experience, but that's what I'm seeing across many clients that we have.
I'm General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer of Earnin. Earnin is a fintech product that allows customers to access their earned income soon after they earn it. Also a client of Parley Pros, I should just mention that. I mean, this crisis situation has impacted our customers just in the most challenging way possible. You know, our demographic, probably 60% of our customers make less than $70,000 a year. They are hourly workers generally, you know, call center workers, you know, government workers, actually, teachers, a lot of people that basically are doing a lot of shift work. And those were the people that sort of most immediately got let go, I think, during the first sort of round of layoffs. And the interesting thing is, like, we saw that data before it would hit the news, right? Because, like, part of the way the product works is that we are able to determine when hours are worked, which means that the people have attended work and then they've actually worked, you know, let's just say, you know, they've worked 8 hours today. That means they've, you know, made $8, 8 hours times their hourly rate, and then we let them cash that out. So we could actually immediately see when they were not able to go to work anymore, because it just hit, you know, just because based on the technology in the app, we saw that data right away, right? So we could almost before the news would hit, we would see these things happening. And we could see it unfold in real time. And it was just really devastating. We're also very community oriented. And so one of the things that we started right away was, we sort of decided to just start like an organic Facebook group, just to basically figure out a way to compile just various state resources to help the community members, right? So for example, somebody in Alabama, people were having a hard time figuring out, like, where do I go if I want to get rent assistance? And so we basically just put together this group with the idea of everybody just sharing their resources. And it has just exploded. and I think in just a really tremendously amazing way, we've had community members basically, like one person he's a plumber and he was on his way to help another community member because her sink had basically exploded and she couldn't afford a plumber. He was on the road, got a flat tire or something like that, and basically got stuck. And so a couple of other community members just Venmoed him some money to help him out with a hot meal and a motel, in a hotel room or something like that on his way. So we've really seen kind of the impact. We hear all these stories all the time because we have this really, really robust Facebook group where people are sort of living these problems, right? But really trying to help each other during this time. And I think that to me has been kind of, it's given me kind of a grain of hope, during all this is that even though people don't, they've lost their own jobs or their families are in distress, like they're still willing to send $20 if they can afford it to someone to help them, right? So I think kind of the goodness of humanity is something that we've been able to also see just based on the community focus of our data. And we've worked on a couple of products, I think, to help. We previously hadn't really focused on allowing people to cash out government benefits before they hit their paycheck. We're now building out a product to help people access a portion of their unemployment check. We're trying to support work from home. So we really have had to pivot to accommodate kind of the new reality and to help people access their government benefits, because I think that's been, we've heard so many stories of the news, like in California, you still cannot get through to the EDD line to even file for unemployment in a lot of cases. And so just our focus has always been helping people solve a cash flow problem. Like it's a timing issue in a lot of ways, right? Like they have money coming in, but it's not in time for them to pay their rent. And so then they get hit with a late fee or they get hit with an overdraft fee. And so for us, like, helping solve that problem of timing and cash flow, which is like very much of a business issue, has been a big focus of what we're trying to do still here.
I love that focus of the community that's coming together. You had also talked about how your business model was based on geolocation, someone actually going to work. Yeah. So talk a little bit more about that shift.
Yeah, so because people take their phone wherever they go, we were able to, obviously we have the right privacy protocols built in place, but we were able to verify in real time using mobile phone location that someone had gone to work. And when people stopped going to work, when they started to work from home in some instances, we suddenly realized, oh my God, like our entire business model is premised on this activity happening that's not happening anymore. And so we just had to scramble like crazy to figure out what to do, right? Because we knew people were still working in a lot of instances, like we'd all been working from home, but like if I were to use the Earnin app for myself, it said I hadn't earned any money, which I know isn't true, right? And so it really like required a lot of creative juices for us to figure out how to validate this in a totally different way than we hadn't. I think to Olga's point about business continuity and thinking, we had thought of the system that we had built worked so well. It's just incredibly accurate. But we had not thought about it in terms of what a pandemic that would require all of us to shelter in place. And so, we've worked through the product features and we're able to pivot and kind of handle things now, but it was certainly a very unique set of circumstances of shelter in place that impacted us in this way. So
yeah. Have you also seen a shift in industries that are people working in particular industries using your platform?
We have, and we're still actually looking through that data. It's still really new, right? Like shelter in place went into effect in California, March 19th, I think. And I think about a week and a half beforehand in Washington. So the West Coast is really the first tranche of data that we have, and we're actually still kind of culling through that data because we had to pivot so much ourselves in terms of technology. The analytics kind of came at the end, but we have seen the shift, especially like call centers. Like a lot of people were able to move to remote, but it took us a little while to catch up and figure that out. So if we had this webinar in a month, I probably have some really interesting stats to report once we've done that analysis. So. Mm-hmm. But it is a luxury, we realize, it is a luxury to be able to work from home. And a lot of the people that were using our app, or they work at hotels and things like that, you can't do that job from home, right? Mm-hmm. And they just lost their job and that was it. So it's been really interesting to see, to really, really, for me to understand how fortunate I am to be in a position where I can do my job really from anywhere. You know, we had a debate in our house, should we shelter in place somewhere else? And I was like, gosh, that's kind of entitled, right? Because I can do that. But our customers actually can't. And that's actually one of, you know, for us has been a real sadness to kind of, in our community group, to see like these stories, like as much as we want to help them and we're glad to see people helping each other, but it's also really driven home kind of the inequity in the country, so.
Mm-hmm. We had talked also about the financial wellness tied to mental wellness. How are you seeing that shape health and financial wellness shape policies?
I mean, Olga, you may have a thought on that. I'll let you jump in first.
No, I mean, I love hearing your stories. I mean, you guys are definitely on the front lines of this pandemic. So, we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. And I think that's exactly what Sangeetha is describing. Some of us are having bigger problems than others. We're helping businesses. Many of our businesses are very well run and prepared. And many of them, using our technology and other remote technology, have been able to transition even more seamlessly than they would otherwise. So we actually have been flooded with a lot of thank you letters. It's really nice to get this from, a lot of our clients are in and government and procurement departments, and they basically write that they would not be able to do what they're doing without the tool. So that is very satisfying. We also have been in the process of closing number of deals with clients who have been affected. So we had number of retailers. We had number of clients who are in travel industry. And we had to figure out how we can help them. We have a number of retailer clients who paying their employees, they're no longer selling anything. And what I found very inspiring, I do not have a COVID program or a COVID discount. What I have is employees who advocate on behalf of clients. And what was really, I don't have a standard package for anyone affected. But it was really interesting to see how, I operate 20 people company, how quickly those stories of prospective clients, existing clients were percolating throughout the organization, and how everyone in the organization was advocating on behalf of the client. And so we've been helping many existing and prospective clients to help them weather storm. And because we realize that the tools we give them are really important to them, and that the time to be a community is now, and that we will sort out the various financial implications of that later. And I really love that this came organically from my employees, that they know my clients. And they know their stories, and they know who their clients are, and they know their pain. And I found it to be very inspiring. And I think I feel, I've joined this company about 8 months ago, and I really felt good about the team before, but I really feel good about my team now, even much more so than before.
I have been using this word a lot lately, but transparency seems to be the key that allows people to thrive in any circumstance. And when you're talking about that, Olga, I'm hearing this transparency and knowing what your customers need, and also honoring Parley Pro as a startup and honoring what your team needs. And so when you're really transparent about, okay, this is what I can do, or this is how I can help you, then it's reciprocal, and you create a stronger relationship for all of the parties involved.
Yes, and including, I think it's very empowering for your team, because they feel like they made a difference. They can tell you the stories and the impact. And it's really win-win all around. There is for both us and our clients, and many of our clients, like Sangeetha, they're doing important work, and they're helping others through financial inclusion, and it is a real privilege to support people do work like this.
Mm-hmm. Sangeetha, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I was thinking, and to sort of pick up on the topic of the right tools and financial inclusion, one of the things from a wellness standpoint, and I mentioned this earlier, is really what our founder had when he started the company. He had done this with the idea that he realized his own employees had a real problem with timing of payments, right? In a year, actually, 6 times out of the year, your rent is due before your paycheck hits your account. And so that means, what do you do? Because, not most people, a lot of people, 70% of Americans, I think, live paycheck to paycheck. And so you don't necessarily have that ability to build up your savings such that you can pay the rent. And it's a timing issue. And that was really kind of what the idea of Earnin started out, was just to make sure that people had kind of very regular access to money, which I think in academic studies has proven out to be very much the case. Just regular access to income actually leads people to make better financial decisions, because it's not like you suddenly got like a big paycheck at the end of the month and you're super excited and you're like, oh, I'm going to go out and sort of just buy something. It just feels good, right? You're like, oh, I got like a big check. I want to go do something fun to celebrate. Not that you shouldn't, right? But having that regular access to pay is really what leads people to sort of make more sort of prudent financial decisions, shopping decisions. And I actually think New Jersey did a very interesting thing. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but they used to load their EBT card once a month, I think it was, right, for food stamps. And I think based on some academic research, they decided to start loading it twice a month. And they found something different, interesting happening. People they started buying more fresh fruits and vegetables. They started buying healthier food, right? They stopped buying less kind of junk food, because they weren't getting this sort of irregular payment that, like, basically they're like, oh, I got to go out and sort of celebrate, right? So access to sort of regular access to income, I think really we found leads to financial stability. We have a lot of surveys we send out. That's really one of the things that we hear most about, is that having access to a product that allows you to access your income as you've earned it really helps with well-being, because you're less stressed about how to hit your bills. You can get it if your car, you get a flat tire, you can actually go, patch it, rather than going to get a payday loan or overdraft fees, which you don't have a whole lot of control over. And so I think that ability to kind of be able to get your income on a regular basis helps people make better financial decisions. And even more so now, one of the products that we're really focusing on is called Tip Yourself, which is really just encouraging people to save more, right? And micro save, actually, because, saving is hard. We have a negative savings rate in this country, and we're always encouraged, save a third of your paycheck. And that's a lot, actually. That's a lot of money for a person who likely can't even put $50 in their gas tank to keep the gas tank full. And so the concept of micro savings is built into one of our products. It just says, hey, save $2-3, because that's okay, right? You deserve, $2-3 is just as good as saving $300, because you build up savings slowly. And a lot of companies and banks actually won't support this, because the cost of the transaction, it's not profitable for them to just move $3. And so they just don't want to bother. Like, there's always going to be some minimum, right? But I think the way we approach it is that we're trying to build financial well-being and financial wellness and financial inclusion, which means that we value the $3 savings just as much as the $300 savings, right? And so we don't let the cost of the transaction dictate how much or how little you want to save, right? We want to just encourage the concept of savings without really forcing someone to put more than they can afford, right? Even $1 is a success.
Well, I love this shift of like, people buy more produce if you pay them twice a month, because produce goes bad. I'm a household of 2, and I can't keep enough produce in, like, I have to go, the thing I'm out of is vegetables every single week. And like, that's the one thing that I have to go to the store for, because I don't have enough room to keep them all fresh. And then if I buy too, like, I don't actually want to eat frozen vegetables. I want to eat fresh ones. And so I love just the data that creates that knowledge and awareness that allows someone to change their business model. It's brilliant.
Well, you know, the most interesting, and it's not happening right now because people aren't going to work, was what we really saw. To me, the sort of the most interesting stat that I ever heard of from our company was that, and I think I mentioned this, right? Our customers really can't afford to fill up a gas tank. It's a lot of money to lock up in your car. And so what they do is they do microtransactions of gas, like they'll put in $5 or $6. And we saw that kind of the day before payday is the day that people kind of don't go to work. And we were like, oh, why is that? And then we started to see, hey, some people would go the day before payday or the day of payday, they would go fill up $5 into the gas station at the gas station, and they would go to work. So we saw this interesting shift that people, once they started using our app, their overall hours worked just went up. And absenteeism went down because people could get to work on that last day, kind of when they're like that, they're sort of down to their last dollar. It allowed them to get 8 hours of work. And it's not like they can work from home and still get paid, right? They have to go to work to get paid. And so rather than taking a no payday, they actually got into work, right? And so we sort of saw on average about 2.5 hours of work increase after our customers started using our app, which we attributed just to realizing that people have barriers with regard to transportation. You know, it costs, even if it costs you like $13 on BART, you might not have $13 to buy a BART ticket to go to work that last day. And it's these like little things, it's these like sort of micro decisions, like which I think I'm really focusing on that. It's these micro decisions that somehow prevent people from like being able to save, right? Or building up kind of like the savings that they need to kind of move from, you know, one level to the next. But when you have to dribble out little bits of money like this all the time, like you lost 8 hours of work, you know, twice a month, like those things start to add up.
Yeah. Olga, you have this great series on opportunities in times of uncertainty and how you are really taking control of your present moment. Talk about what you've done so far and share a little bit of what the advice that you've shared that has really resonated for your followers.
Yeah, so I have, you know, everyone who knows me, I have a soft spot for in-house lawyers. Those are my people. I've been a general counsel before. I've been a number 2 lawyer before. I've been at startups. I've been at Fortune 500 company. I feel that I've been through a law firm, but I definitely, you know, my people, my tribe is in-house lawyers. And I've seen the acts of heroism throughout my career. I know how much they do every day. I know how hard it is. And I really like serving that community. Our product serves this community. My writing serves that community. My speaking usually serves that community. So I've been, you know, blogging about in-house issues for a very, very long time. It's like something over 10 years in various forums. I have been writing a column in the Above the Law for years at ACC and numerous other places, speaking about the future of law and how we can do our jobs better and how we can be happier in the process, and how if we can really focus on our core competencies and allow other processes and technologies to take care of things that are more mundane, how we would be much more satisfied with our career. Because, you know, folks who graduate from law school tend to be very intelligent. They jump through increasing number of hoops throughout their career, and a lot of their days is filled with mundane tasks. And that's why there's a lot of disappointment. So when coronavirus hit, I've embraced this medium of writing, and I've always wanted to do videos. As a lawyer, writing is easier because you have a lot of control. I can write, I can edit, I can reread, I can re-edit before I publish it. Over the years, I went from writing one article, you know, over a period of a week or a month to like writing one in 20 minutes. And so occasionally you'll even find a typo in my article. And that's because I'm really trying to have consistency and continuity as opposed to perfection so that we can have a dialogue. And so it took me only 10 years to not be a control enthusiast about all the things that I'm publishing. So, and then in the back of my mind for the last 5 years, I thought, well, I would speak on camera. And because, you know, it's one thing to communicate in writing, it's a very different thing to experience this conversation, you know, in camera, right, or in person. And so I've always thought that how I would also expand my ability to talk to my community that I care about through video. And I had a lot of reservations, how I sound, how I look. I can't go back. I can't edit. I don't even have 20 minutes. I just have just boom, I have to go. And so I've always found an excuse that I'm too busy to do it. And then coronavirus hit, and all of a sudden I had some extra hours. I was not commuting 3 hours a day, and I all of a sudden had time to sort of research, figure out how my camera works, and all of that. And so I I essentially started applying the same rule. I did not record things like 500 times for the opportunity to find that perfect recording. I just recorded once for 10 minutes, and it is what it is. You just got an authentic Olga, and she's sometimes imperfect. And so I kind of got over that fear and procrastination of speaking on camera, and started communicating with my followers through video, and had a great response, both in engagements with the content I put out, and then numerous calls that follow that, and numerous conversations that are private conversations. And we've had numerous conversations around from things like what it's like, to do work with my husband, my 2 kids, and my mother being in the same house, and meeting everyone's expectations, and dealing with the fact that they only have 2 hours of school a week, and that there's an expectation that I teach them full time, to things like opportunities for in-house lawyers to influence the organization during the time of crisis. And then frankly, I think there's a huge opportunity for lawyers going forward to have even a bigger role in the business that they're helping to operate, because I think things like sustainability, things like business continuity, things like trust are going to be super important going forward. And those are not legal issues, but they often have legal framework, and lawyers often have an ability to lead those conversations in a systematic way that is productive to the company. So those are the conversations we've been having, and I've had a lot of engagement and contribution, and learned a lot in the process. And I have to say, I am secretly a fan of video now. I am still very much a student of that medium. I still have some fears, but I would say the last 9 weeks of being on camera, of not only through Zoom, but also through various content that I put out, has really allowed me to move away from focusing what do I look like to how can I serve my community. And it's important to have the conversations about our current state and future.
So what should in-house counsel be doing now in this time of uncertainty to prepare for what's next, in terms of if someone doesn't have that business advocacy role right now, to elevate themselves into being that trusted advisor who leads the business through this change?
Sangeetha, do you want to take it?
Well, I've actually thought a lot about this, and it's funny because I joined, I started as the company's first GC and CCO in July, right? So, I was the only legal advisor, so I was the only one that the company relied on. And I was really fortunate. I built my team out quite quickly, I think, to about 9 people. And I had finished that effort by November 1st. But I was still the face of legal for the longest time, right? And then, but very slowly but surely, I'd start putting my 2 senior lawyers into situations where they were really more, the direct advocates for a particular product or for a particular point of view, or particular policy. And then we went into coronavirus, and I realized, again, like everything shifted back to me, right? Like I became the point person. And I kind of realized after 3 weeks, like, that's exhausting, right? Because I'm like, hey, I hired all these people, yet I'm still fielding all the questions. But my exhaustion aside, it's not fair. It's not good for their professional development, because what I realized, and I had someone on my team ask me this the other day, they said, well, when are we going to go back to BAU? And I didn't know what acronym he was talking about for a second, because was too many acronyms. But I realized business as usual. And I said, you know what? This is business as usual. And I don't know and so we need to make this work, right? Like, we're not in a pause state, an interim state where like everything is sort of in kind of just hanging in stasis, and then we're going to suddenly go back to the office and you're going to have your ability to have interactions with, you know, other people again. I said, you got to do that now, right? And so for me, like, especially more recently, like you know, even though it's probably easier for me to talk directly to the CEO about a particular issue, like I basically, even though it might take a little longer, but I'm like, heck, I'm saving on a commute now. I said, let's have the conversation with the senior lawyer in the room. Let's train my CEO to start going to her instead of me, right? For this particular thing, right? Like it actually it takes more time to basically feed out those relationships when it is probably a lot easier for me just to kind of synthesize and quickly communicate back to, especially the exec team. But that isn't the right thing to do for my team, right? My team needs to have that exposure. And we talk a lot about like, how do we do that when you have to, you know, do you have to be on Zoom all the time? We've been really heavily using Slack, right? And so I'm like, look, like, let's create some channels, but why don't you update the channel instead of me, right? Like, why don't you become the face of this particular issue rather than letting me be the face of the issue? And so we've had to figure out different ways of communication that gives my team visibility in a context where they're not going to run into the CEO or the CFO like in the hallway. Like we have to create those hallways like virtually. And that's taken a lot more time actually on my end, but you know, I actually feel like that's an investment in my team, but it's also an investment in myself because I know that like I can't, from a capacity standpoint, be the only person that handles everything. So I'm actually really curious to know, Olga, because you're so focused on operations, like what thoughts you have on that, because it is a continuous challenge, right, to kind of figure out how to create these virtual hallway conversations.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, I'll address your question in a moment. There's a couple of things that you and also you find that not all your employees have same needs. You know, you'll have people like me who have been commuting for 3 hours and barely seen my kids, who sort of like secretly happy to be working more from home. And you know, I feel a little guilt saying that, but you know, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I optimize my commute too. You know, between the ebooks and calls, you know, it was just fine. But you know, but then I have some employees who like whiteboarding with others close together, and that's how their creative juices work. They like, you know, a client calls, has an issue, and they go straight to the CTO to discuss this. So we definitely, you know, so I think as any leader, whether you're a departmental leader or the company leader, I think, you know, those virtual hallways and then just basically taking care of your team and learning what that means in each specific case is paramount. With respect to our product, you know, we are highly collaborative, very transparent, and we very much encourage that virtual experience of handling contracts. That collaborative part of it is what has always appealed to our clients and transparent. That allowed everybody in the organization to have a relationship with the contract appropriate to their function. And we see the demand for those two things, the collaboration, the real-time collaboration, and an appropriate relationship with the contract to have even more push toward that direction. We now that everybody doesn't even at all have what we've had clients before say to us that all those things we did in person and took a lot longer time, you guys were able to automate. But they still had an option of showing up and say Sangeetha's office or cubicle or table, you know, if they really wanted to have a conversation. Now that is not an option. And so there is push for even more tools, for even more ways to have various conversations and to be creative. And what I actually find very interesting is that we went from the state of the world where we're dealing with this remoteness as a necessity, and we're transitioning to this anywhere remoteness as a lifestyle. And the reason that shift is different is because if you think it's a small patch or temporary thing, you're going to be able to tolerate various hurdles and friction. But if it's going to be your lifestyle, and increasingly that's becoming a lifestyle, because we're realizing that period of our life we may need to be remote for whatever reason, whether it's a global crisis or personal crisis, or even personal choice. And if that becomes a lifestyle, then the friction is no longer tolerated, right? Because if it's a lifestyle, those little inconveniences become major nuisances. And clients are very good at pointing out those little things that are little nuisances become major inconveniences. And so we see a lot of push for even more collaboration, to think about collaboration as a digital first, not as something that you do because you're lazy to get up and talk to your coworker, but that's because you don't have a choice. And so it's very, so we get a lot of push on that. And that's where a lot of innovation is going, and we're really excited about a number of things that we will be rolling out.
I think for anyone in any job, to really show up and be helpful and compassionate right now are the most important ways to show your value. You know, to really have that sense of hunger where you're, you know, like not showing up saying like, that's not my job, but hey, actually, I do know how to do this thing that we haven't used in business yet, and I can show the board how to interact with us in this way. I can talk through whiteboarding remotely with the sales team, you know, and so whatever your role is, if you have something that can contribute to making the organization stronger, it's a way to get visibility and stand up for yourself and make things easier for people. And ultimately, you know, that's going to save them time and make them look smarter and put you in the right place.
That's right.
So what do you both do to stay fresh and alert? Because like, I know I feel exhausted most days. Like, I just like, I need to totally veg. And I'm a household of two. I have one son, and it's just already, it's like just so much intake, right? I know we've already read the studies of why we're on like Zoom overload and the visual and all that, but it's just like too much. And then I'm also doing yoga teacher training remotely. So this weekend from Friday through Sunday, I'll be on Zoom yoga all day. It's just too much. And so I just kind of shut down. What do you guys do to connect? Because you're in these jobs where it's all on. Olga, you're the CEO of a startup. You can't slow down.
Yeah, those are really good questions. And I think if you talk to people who know me, they would probably want me to slow down. That's probably a repeated, persistent request that I sometimes hear, sometimes I don't. You know, I like to focus on what I've gained. And what I've gained is the opportunity to see my kids a whole lot more than I've seen them before. We take walks twice a day, and I have an opportunity to put them to bed every day and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. And I'm really grateful for that. That has not been my lifestyle in, I don't remember when. I also, because I'm not commuting, I am now getting, I always get 8 hours of sleep because I need to get 8 hours of sleep, but I actually like 10. And so I've been getting around 10 or so, again, feeling very guilty around it, but I'm not changing my habits because, and I am really grateful for that opportunity. So the focus on being grateful for things that I didn't, you know, I gave up, you know, for the opportunity to commute 3 hours a day, and gaining it back has really shifted. As a CEO, I'm very actively now asking, you know, do we need to have a physical office? What is the value of Olga commuting 3 hours a day, every day? And so it's the time with my family, and it's the time that I gave up for little luxuries like a little bit more sleep. Getting it back, that really allowed me to actually be much more productive at work. Not only I have extra hours, but I also have extra energy. I now have energy to do videos. I now have energy to to go even more above and beyond, and actually feel very deeply satisfied that I actually kind of see the light of how I can be both a good CEO and a good mother. Because I have to say, before it was actually really challenging. Um, so for me, those things are very energizing. That time with my family, both indoors and outdoors, and that extra sleep, and I kind of love it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say again, also the gift of not commuting has also given me more time with my daughter, which I think has been so much fun. You know, she lost. School's been. We're really lucky. We're in a school district where I think they've actually done a pretty good job with distance learning. Right. Of course, I'll be critical. I am an Asian mom, but like I have to say, like compared to so many other stories that I've heard, like we have a really dedicated teaching staff and they put a lot of effort into distance learning. So I'm not having to do as much homeschooling, I think, as a lot of other people are. But you know, my daughter, and so she's doing perfectly fine in school, but she misses sports, right? And so me and her dad are her basketball team at this point in time. And I'm not sure that, you know, two people in their mid 40s should be competing against an 11-year-old, but it's been really fun. You know, like I remember a couple of years ago, my husband always accuses me. He's like, oh, whenever Anya has an interest, you go and buy something off of Amazon for her, right? And so like 2 years ago, I bought her a basketball hoop, right? And man, that thing, like the best thing I ever bought, right? Because we basically go outside, we play horse. Like I can run out in the middle of the day and like we'll do like a quick like game of like, you know, knockout or something like that. And so like just having that ability to like play games with her, right? Like I never had the energy to do that kind of stuff. I would come home and like we would eat dinner and then I'd be like scrambling to help her with her homework, and it just wasn't like, it was fun, but like I didn't get to know her as a person that well, right? Because I was just like trying to catch up with what happened in the day at school and like what happened here and how come there's an incomplete on this and how come you can't, you know, reach your toes and you're not doing well in the sit, you know, just like dumb things. And like now I'm like, well, why don't we take a Peloton yoga class together, right? Like we can do all these things that I always wanted us to do, like go to do mom and daughter yoga together. Like we just get to do those things now, right? And that's like, it's been so fun. And like I'm like, I know she needs to go back to school because she's missing her friends, but like, man, I'm gonna miss that, right? Like I'm gonna miss being her 6th grade basketball team. And like it goes by so fast. Like it's just so, I don't know. I mean, I don't mind working from home. Like, of course, it'd be lovely to go out to dinner, you know, and see friends. Like that's the thing that I miss the most. But I certainly don't miss the way I used to be, which I think was just a very rushed parent. And I'm glad that like, in a way, like we're lucky, like my husband and I can both work from home. And like, it's been a blessing for us. I mean, my husband, especially, like he used to be on the road, like at least a quarter or third of the year. And now he's like making pancakes on like a Tuesday. Like I was like, you know, and he's having a good time. Like he's like, I never got to do this stuff before, right? Yeah. Like, so I don't know. I mean, again, I think I mentioned like we're in the group of people that have been fortunate to be able to continue our working from home. And like we've had the blessing of having, you know, a school district that takes care of the schooling for us for the most part. And we just get to have the fun part of parenting. So but I'm glad I had that extra energy, because now I think I spend a lot more time helping my team on product, like especially like products to help like for unemployment and things like that, because like now I feel like I have to take the gift that I've been given and at least try to do something else for people who just aren't as lucky in that sense. So
and I agree with that. This focus on building has been another blessing of this tragedy, really. And you know, there are a lot of studies that successful companies during various downturns focus energy on building. They see all the assumptions that have been revealed, that have been taken for granted. They look for opportunities, and they get down to working hard and hearing their clients and going full force ahead on building. And definitely that's exactly what we're doing at Parley.
Yeah, I hear from both of you, and I agree too, is this fluidity of time has created opportunities that we didn't have before. And it's like both of you said, getting out in the middle of the day with your kids, where you don't have to wait till 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock at night. You don't have a long commute. And so just having that time, you know, time is relative to the experiences that we have present. And so really being present, staying focused, I hear in both of you, which is great. If there are any questions from audience members, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A box. We're going to wrap up in just a minute, but I'd love to hear what your favorite shelter-in-place meal has been so far.
I have mastered eggplant parmesan. Like, I got down the steps. I make that thing a lot. And I use the America's Vegetarian Test Kitchen recipe, but I did figure out a breading shortcut, because then 3 pans seems like a lot to wash when you're doing all your own dishes all the time. But man, that thing just hits the spot. We eat it every week. So.
Nice.
Full disclosure, I'm not a cook, and actually I'm not allowed in my kitchen. I'm kind of banned. My household includes my mother, who is really the queen of the household, and there can only be one queen in the kitchen. Apparently, I'm not it. But even though I have not perfected the art of cooking, I've definitely perfected the art of eating. And between my spouse and my mother, I've been definitely taken care of. I've definitely indulged in various dishes that were not really part of my life before. And so I'm really, again, grateful for the opportunity to share this sheltering in place with you know, there's total 5 of us, and I'm definitely a beneficiary of all the extra time they have to pour into cooking.
That sounds amazing.
Quite a bit of like baking happening also, because I'm 11-year-old with time on her hands. Like bread quite a bit. So.
I'm the one who's like, how does everyone have time for cooking? And who are all the people ordering 25-pound bags of flour? My friends who are GCs, and they're ordering these, like, I don't know where that comes from. I don't have that time.
I'm all about using the oven to do the work for you while you do something else. So
yeah,
I think the smartest thing I ever did was getting an oven with electronics so it turns itself off. You need to be there. So.
We do have a quick question from Maya Mancuso at Bird and Bird. She asked about video fatigue and how we deal with it, and we kind of touched on it earlier. I actually, if I don't have to be on video, Maya, I just ask if I can just do a phone call. And I'm the person, I've worked from home for 7 years. And so when this started, for me, I was like, why does everyone want to see me all of a sudden? Why can't we just talk? Like, haven't y'all heard of the phone? Oh my gosh. Like, why is this like, no, I don't want you to see me, or like, oh, you know what? I actually am, like, it's a great excuse, but because I'm teaching yoga, I am always in workout clothes, like always. So I don't want you to see me. Like, I can do meditation and yoga by phone. It's all good. I can coach I've had coaching clients for 7 years virtually, and it's never been by video. And it's definitely overwhelming. How do the two of you manage that?
I go for walks. I mean, I kind of like, we had initially when we're trying to figure out how to work remotely, like there was some rule that you should always be on video. And then after 2 weeks, like I was the first one who was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like every call doesn't have to be a video. So, you know, I live in a beautiful neighborhood. I'm really lucky for that. And so I just put on my like Beats headphones, because like I can't keep AirPods in my ear, and I go for walks. Like I just walk and talk, and Zoom works just as well without the video. So I just decided that it was not necessary to be on video for everything, and I'll tell people ahead of time and be like, look, don't get dressed for me, because I think that's the most tiring part of this whole thing. So like everything else is doable, but like always having to look at the video that's what's kind of draining me.
I look at this and I'm like, I need to learn how to do makeup like Olga, because I look
Yeah.
pale and I have lipstick on, and like Olga looks amazing. Can you teach
There's a
me some
YouTube
tricks? Because
full
I
of
really don't know.
tutorials. That's what COVID did. That's why I decided to, I'm a nude lipstick kind of girl. So
Yeah, and I want to know what color lipstick and that blue liner. That's really pretty. I don't know what that is. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
little did I know that this is going to become this type of conversation. Yeah, I sort of kind of embraced video. I think there's general sort of working from home fatigue, because, on some level, like all you can do is work really. Other than, spending some time with your family, there's really not much else actually kind of to do. And so it's very easy because the distance between your desk and your bed is relatively small. And so you end up working a lot more. And then, it kind of feels silly to take, a PTO. Like, who takes a PTO when you like cannot, do anything, nobody's taking PTO. And it's really easy, like, not to like do breaks. So this, COVID burnout is a real thing, with or without video. Just so we actually alternatively need to figure out like what we do for fun if we're not traveling. What does PTO look like? What does the break look like? It has to be a very intentional act, and how you schedule, how you make sure that, the same way as you exercise, and take care of yourself, taking care of yourself, including taking time off and being intentional and scheduling. That's what I basically, I have on my calendar various blocks for, read a magazine. I have to actually have a reminder, because it's actually really easy for me to have straight through working, because it's not healthy to work 24/7. It turns out, and that's how you get burnout. But I am actually really, I'm gonna, in defense of video technology, I've embraced it. I've never been a fan of video technology before. I've rediscovered video, just period, with this whole COVID. I've used it to connect with people all over the world, some of whom I've met before, some of them I haven't. And I kind of loved it. I can see how that will not always be my lifestyle, but I found myself in the circumstances where everybody's sort of doing video. And then a lot of people who never had time for me before now have time for me. And I have curiosity, they have time. So I've been able to reconnect with people from my past, discover other folks who have very interesting things to say and I can learn from. And video has been a great medium to make this country smaller, make this world smaller, and I'm infinitely grateful for the opportunity to have video conversation, and they feel very human to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think what you touched on too is really important, which is this sense of PTO. And I actually have had a couple of friends who've used PTO just to take a day off of rest. But it is important that, because now our time is so fluid, and this work boundary is even less existent. So to say like, I need a break and I'm going to be unavailable for the next 3 hours, whatever that is, and just making that happen. My last question for you, Olga, is does Kevin do your videos? Is he your videographer?
No.
No.
He does. He helped. For those people who know Kevin, my husband, I've been married to him for over 10 years. He is a very supportive man, and have been helpful to me throughout the years for many reasons. He has perfected the art of cooking. He is a much better parent than I am. But videos I do on my own. I bought myself a tripod, and I am pretty good on doing it on my own. So he's very helpful, but in this regard, I'm completely self-sustainable.
And do you use your phone on a tripod or something else?
I do. I use my phone. I bought some other technologies, and I am in the process of learning more technologies, again, on my own.
Can you give us a class on that next? Because I would love to learn that.
Anytime.
Thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you, Olga, Mack, and Sangeetha Raghunathan, for making this time to share your insights on opportunities and ways that we can move forward and be present for what we have right now. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.